Hello and welcome to Move or Improve with Debbie. I'm your host, Debbie Miller. Today I've invited Kay Bransford, a professional financial advocate, onto the show, and we're going to talk about adulting. And now that term has been in the dictionary since 2014, and it was coined by millennials to describe what they're going through as they grow up. But different stages of life call for different levels of adulting. And Kay uses a wide range of services to help people pay bills, organize for taxes, submit medical claims, and combat fraud and scams on behalf of their clients. And she launched Dealing with Dementia, which has been recognized as a top blog and by Healthline for 5 years running. And she published Money Bank, Your Workbook for Organizing Life, and received an Older Adult Innovation Award from ARP Foundation. So welcome to the show, Kay.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get started on this whole adulting thing. I find it interesting because I have two children in their 30s, and I know you have growing adult children. So let's define adulting. What is it?
So adulting is defined as the practice of behaving in a way characteristic of a responsible adult, especially the accomplishments of mundane but necessary tasks.
Yeah, like learning how to cook but writing a check, although they don't do that. They use Venmo and stuff like that. But yeah, I get what you mean. There's a Facebook page that talks about the challenges of raising teenagers, and I find it very interesting to refer to that. But talk about a little bit about what the phases of adulting are.
So I've broken it down I categorize it in 5 different sections. So there's pre-adulting, basic adulting, adulting graduate, and adulting master.
Does anybody ever get to be an adulting master? Have you ever met anybody who was a master at this?
Yes, I have met a couple adulting masters, and so we can kind of get into what it means to become an adulting master.
Okay, well, let's talk about the basic pre-adulting. How would you define what age that covers, and what should you expect during that time frame?
So, to me, pre-adulting is really when you have those teenagers in the home that many of us have raised or are still raising. And you think about those simple tasks of getting them ready for the rest of their life. Opening up a bank account, they start to learn time management, online use and etiquette. How do you behave online? How to sort and wash your clothes, how to do the dishes. So it's basic necessities that every adult, skills that we should all have, that is kind of in that pre-adulting phase. What's interesting to me is, and I wanted to bring this up, is one of the things that comes back around to get us as we age and we're getting older is that those custodial accounts we open up for our children, like the savings account that we all grew up with, after 2 years, if you don't take money out of a bank account, it goes dormant. And I realized this with my children because their savings account kept going dormant. And it was like, I went to these banks and I said, well, why is this going dormant? The whole point of saving is to save money. And they're like, well, the rules now are if you don't withdraw money every 2 years, the account goes into a dormant status. So every adult should know about that.
I think that's very interesting. So is that with all banks? Is it like a federal rule now, or what?
It is apparently a federal rule because I went to another bank trying to figure it out, and they said, no, we don't do that, but they did do that. So apparently it's a federal rule.
You caught them red-handed, and they were hoping you didn't catch them. So is this for savings and checking both, or what goes dormant?
Right. It's really any banking account that doesn't have withdrawal activity goes into a dormant status. And people might have recognized, like when they went to the bank, they're like, what are you talking about? Why is my account in dormant status? And that's why, because you didn't take money out of it in the past 2 years. So it's just 2 years.
Okay, good. Oh, well, that's a scary thought. And who gets the money if it doesn't get taken out? Can you reactivate the account somehow?
Yes. Once you talk to the bank and you explain you do this, then they'll take you through a process to make it undormant. But you just need to know if you don't take money out of it in 2 years, it's going to fall back into this dormant status. There's a longer timeline before it would ever get turned over or considered a unclaimed money account. That's a longer period of time, but there's just a banking where they kind of freeze the account after 2 years.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. I did not know that. Of course, my kids are now grown and have their own accounts, but it's just, that's amazing to think about. At any rate, what happens after okay, let's say somebody graduates from pre-adulting and goes to basic adulting. How is that different, and what constitutes basic versus pre?
So I use the term basic adulting because that's actually, you are a legal adult. And so there are certain things that come with becoming a legal adult, even though you might not be moving out from the home that you're living in, or having to go rent or manage, a budget and buy all the food and stuff by yourself. So to me, that basic adulting is you turn 18, and there's legal rights and responsibilities you now have as, this quote unquote official adult. And so they might be going to college or working from home or doing a bunch of things, but you still need to start learning how to budget and manage. You might need to get into learning grocery shopping and meal planning. And for my public service announcement, 18 is really the age. This is the age when every adult should get their first sets of powers of attorney, because they are a legal adult.
Let's talk about that for a minute. I don't want to interrupt the train of thought, but while we're on the subject, I think that's very important. So chat about that for a moment.
So what I have witnessed is that we all think of powers of attorney as something that we do as we're aging. This is a tool for older adults. But the reality is that a power of attorney is really the right for someone else to act on your behalf while you're living. So I hate the fact that it's become this estate planning tool, because it really is a tool to let someone step in and help you either with your finances or with your medical affairs after 18. So we should think about this as something for living. And as I look at it, when my kids turned 18, my doctor won't talk to me. The doctor, when my kid turns 18, won't talk to me about my child unless they've released the information, but I'm expected to pay the bills. So I think, one, you should just have this medical power of attorney in place, because if you do need to talk to a doctor and they're traveling or they're away at school, you're going to need to have a medical POA, in minor situations. If it's a life-threatening, they'll always talk to you. But if you're paying the bills and managing the medical for your kid, you should have that right to speak to the doctor and advocate for them, 18 or whatever their age is.
Absolutely. So is that the same as a medical directive? I know people who are listening may not know that, medical directive versus medical power of attorney, that sort of thing.
So, medical directives don't play into as much of a role for someone who's 18, because you typically won't have to make choices about end-of-life care. They could. It really depends on your estate lawyer, how involved they get with this. But it's really, medical directives are saying, this is what I want should I be near the end of my life. These are my choices that I'm making. And I think it's hard for someone who's, younger to have to make those choices or think about those things. So
it's hard enough for older people to do that, and the younger people think that they're going to live forever. But there may be a terrible car accident or something that would affect their ability to move around and that sort of thing. So
exactly, I think we all grew up with the Karen Ann Quinlan story, and
yeah.
So we all know that. But so the medical is one, but then there's the financial. So it's the financial power of attorney. And I used that when my son was traveling with his track team with college, and we needed to get his taxes in, and I could submit his taxes for him because I'm his financial power of attorney. So there's instances where it's just practical to have someone to be able to do those things for you.
Yeah, it's like having a clone of yourself who will do what you need to do and keep you in line and on time for whatever may come up. So I think that's a good idea to have. And so if somebody hasn't done it yet and they're, say, 28, 29, it's still not too late to do that, but they should definitely put it on a front burner instead of a back burner to get it done.
Right. I think it's just it is a rule of adulting, as you should have, who's going to be my backup if I can't speak for myself? And that can happen to us at any point in our adult lives.
That's very true. So what are some of the tasks that basic adulting should include? What should they be able to do during this time frame, and what ages approximately would you say that this covers roughly?
So, I mean, I think this is more 18 to early 20s for the basic adulting. I mean, you're thinking about learning about voting. You start to think about my career and my education. So it's almost those planning. You're starting to plan for the next phase of your life. How do you maintain your health? How do you manage your food, your sleep, and your exercise? So those are some, to me, the basic adulting skills that everyone should have.
Absolutely. So when they graduate from basic adulting and go into real adulting, what should somebody in the quote unquote adulting category be able to do, and by what ages should that be possible? I mean, there are TV shows on that show people who have moms who always did stuff, and the child is 35, 40, and the parent is still doing stuff for them. And I think, oh my gosh. I always ask mothers, especially, because they tend to be more guilty of this, but are you really going to go to college with your child, or are you going to teach them how to do their own laundry before they go? So it just, how long are you going to hang on, and what is the reason for that? So talk about adulting. Yeah.
You're right where I am with this one. To me, this is really the official launch of an individual into their own. I am my own person. I'm managing all of my affairs. I'm negotiating, and I understand rent and the consequences of taking out a long-term commitment for that. I may be buying and maintaining a car. So I have to manage everything. I know that I have the money to take care of it. So I'm managing my cash flow and my financial accounts. I might be saving for a future expense. I might want to go back to school, or maybe I'm thinking of I want to start buying my first condo when I'm in my early 30s. But I think this is also the part where you might start thinking about getting married. When might I have kids? So there's a lot more things that are going into the adulting part. This is really the meat of, I think, what millennials talk to when they say adulting. It's all those big, heavy responsibilities that come with being an official adult.
So what are some things, I know, because I've been through this, and I know you have too, but what are some things that parents should be helping their child to learn those skills and become self-sufficient? What can they do to encourage self-sufficiency, which is what I call it, but
well, and I think it's a good question, because and it's funny, I have my son who is in this phase is like, I got it, back off, don't need your help. But he'll come home with, I'm looking at this rent. He's managing, he has medical, which medical insurance should I pick? And so I think it's nice when they come to you to ask, but I think part of it is letting this be a discussion, not a take it and do it for them, but help guide them on how do you make the choices. If you choose the HMO over the PPO, what does that mean for you? And how do you, when you go to the doctor and you get this bill, how do you check to see if you owe that money? So all of those things have been stuff that we've been dealing with more recently, because he does come to us and ask some of those questions about how do I fine tune the things I'm doing on my own, or that I might not really know about. So it's being able to have that discussion, and hopefully they're coming to you to be a resource on those more complicated matters.
And it's better to come to you as the parent rather than try to fumble around and take the advice from somebody else and do it wrong or incorrectly. And then they say, oh my gosh, I didn't know I had to do that. So it's good to have the parent as a resource. And it's good if the parent can, like you said, advise but not do.